Welcome to the Women Talk podcast, where ordinary women share their extraordinary stories. We would love for you to share your story on our podcast. Go to www.womentalk.ca and apply to share your story. And now let's welcome your host, founder, and CEO of Women Talk, Bridget Lessard-Diel.
Welcome back to the Women Talk Show, where women make their communities stronger one story at a time. Today, my guest is Chef Susan Hoy. Oh, it's a good one. I really enjoyed our conversation. Now, Susan makes nutrition-focused eating easy and accessible for everyone. Bringing a truly unique skill set and professional training to the table, Susan is a classically trained Red Seal chef and a Canadian Chef de Cuisine and an Agrologist, which is a soil and vegetation specialist. She has an extensive knowledge of the food manufacturing industry and is passionate about empowering clients through education and hands-on abilities. Her client changed their health one meal at a time. Let's listen to Chef Susan Hoy's story.
My story of founding Culinary Skills and Nutrition came from when I was actually working in the environmental industry. I was working as an agrologist, creating biosoils. And it was through the research of my biosoils that I made some connections that I just had to get out to the world. It was really important for me. During my time working as an agrologist, it was really eye-opening to me in the sense of doing so much research into the information that I needed to create my biosoil. It was specifically being used for greenhouses. And the gentleman that was running these greenhouses was very interested in creating really nutrient-dense vegetables. He was selling tomatoes, and he was concerned with the fact that the tomatoes that you buy in the grocery store have no flavor. And we've all experienced that, where we grow a tomato on our patio or in our backyard, and it's full of flavor and it's full of juice, and they ripen differently than one that he was finding in the grocery store. And so this project was birthed from that desire to make a better, to make a better quality produce than what we're used to getting. And so it was through this research of understanding how does soil work, how does it impact the growing of vegetables. And it was through this research that I was making all kinds of connections between the nutrition in our food and the lack of, and the connection to disease. That's what was surfacing when I would research this. There was always mention in a lot of these studies on connection between lack of vitamin B or the diminished amount of iron in some particular vegetables that was being linked to autoimmune diseases specifically. And at the time, I was going through a personal thing where my mom had just died from an autoimmune disease. And so I was really starting to connect the dots. And I kind of had an aha moment one day. I was sitting in my little office at the back of a greenhouse, and I made the connection between the autoimmune disease that my mom had and the nutrition that she lacked from her standard Canadian diet that she ate. And I always state it in the fact that my mom died from scleroderma, which is a skin disorder. And she suffered for 13 years over white bread and mayonnaise. And it was the lack of nutrition, as well as some other environmental factors, that triggered her autoimmune disease to begin in the first place. And once I made that connection, it was only a few months before I had founded Culinary Skills and Nutrition. To kind of coincide with all of that happening professionally for me, I also had the need to be creative again. You can't be very creative in the scientific world. Although I was doing something incredibly creative by making soil, I was missing the joy of being in the kitchen and creating on that level. I am first and foremost a chef, and that's where I find most of my joy. And at the time, my friends were coming to me because they knew I had daughters that had dietary restrictions. And so I was always creating gluten-free and nut-free and all different kinds of combinations. And they were coming to me for advice. How do I make something to take my kids can take to school? Cupcakes, all of that. And so I kind of had an epiphany where someone had asked me for some gluten-free cupcakes, and I happily gave them the recipe. And that's when it hit me that I need to teach this. People don't understand the connection between what they're eating and them being sick, specifically with those that are gluten-free, because they were eating the gluten-free products on the shelf, not realizing that they're contributing to their declining gut health. And it was from that I found my passion. I found my purpose in life for sure. And every day now, I get to help people by way in memory of my mom, who I was never able to help. And so now every time I'm able to give someone a little bit of advice, this is how you heal your gut. This particular ingredient is affecting you this way. That it's empowering people to be better. It's empowering people to make different choices. It's giving them the ability to take their life into their own hands. And it may be minor, it may be something discomfort, or it may be life-threatening, where someone is in the fight for their life and they don't realize that, oh my God, it's my food that's impacting me on a great deal.
Do you want more out of Women Talk? Sign up for our Women Talk membership today. Receive discounts at all of our live events, talk on more stages, receive free monthly webinars, or host a webinar yourself. Join this powerful sisterhood we call Women Talk. Visit womentalk.ca/membership.
So what were you first? Were you an agrologist or a chef first?
I'm chef first.
So you became a chef and then you went on to studying agrology, you called it?
Yes.
And what is that exactly?
It's soil, vegetation, and water specialist, and how the three of them interact. I specialized in soil and vegetation. Water was too...
Watery?
Yeah, exactly. Water was too intense and scientific for me.
So what do you think is wrong with the Canadian food guide?
It is set up with the purpose of moving commodities. It does not have our health at first as a first priority. It has the movement and the economy as a first priority.
So you mean by that it's very high in the grains?
It's
and
what is on the Canada's food guide is deemed by industry. That recently when they tried changing the Canada's food guide, and they were having surveys of the general public, and there was just hinting that they were going to reduce the amount of dairy required on the Canada's food guide. There was a huge uproar by the dairy industry to say, no, you can't do that. Because the government of Health Canada is legislated to support our industry. There's legislation in place that by law requires Health Canada to support our dairy industry, our pork industry, our poultry industry. And so they have huge pull when it comes to creating something like a Canada's food guide.
You know, the more I learn about food, I have watched every documentaries that come out on Netflix. I talk to people, and like there seems to be such a conspiracy, like so much stuff that we don't know about, that we don't understand. Like what the hell is going on with all this? Like, as it really be? And I know, like, there's even comments such as, you know, the companies that used to own the tobacco now are owning our food and doing what they did to the tobacco to our food. Like, what do you think of all this big mess?
I don't like to use the term conspiracy because I think that it kind of gives teeth to aspects of it that aren't exactly true. But the idea that big industry is running our food industry or are running the food that we eat on our plates every day is the fact of the matter of how it works. And when big profits are involved, then there's huge pull, and I don't think people realize the absolute extent to the level of food that is a commodity for us. And if it's going to make money and keep jobs, there's so often is turned a blind eye because the greater good in the eyes of so many people is to keep people employed, keep things moving, get bigger, always bigger and better, bigger and better. But when it comes to our food, the idea that this is our nutrition, this is our health on the line, that gets lost in the shuffle because it's not always, or it hasn't been up to now being profitable. Mm. And so if they can create something cheaper by a mere half a cent, if you expand that onto the large market of how many bags of Doritos are sold, that's a huge, huge financial impact.
Now, come on, don't bring on Doritos into this conversation. That's not fair. Okay, I must tell you, so my first realization of some of the stuff that was going on that I didn't understand, I was, you know, going on a diet, trying to lose a little weight, and I thought, I'm going to buy some fat-free salad dressing because then you save a few calories. And then, you know, this is down the road. I don't know how long it took, but I read this thing that whenever they take the fat out, they just add sugar. And I'm like, no way. I go to the store and I pick up the 2 bottles and I was blown away. And how often does that happen? Like in how many foods?
Very much so. And there's a lot of, I call it the 80s effect, where so many people are in the mindset that we need low fat and we want to avoid the fat. But unfortunately, that's not the way it works. And the more we deplete ourselves of those satisfying fats and whole foods, the more we crave, the more we eat, the more our bodies get imbalanced. But it's not just the sugar. It's not just the low-fat items. There's other things that they will be putting into these low-fat foods to help preserve, because fat is a good preservative. It just is. And when you remove that from some of these foods, they have to put other preservatives in. And there's also an impact on these additives that they're adding, which are impacting our satiation levels. They're depleting our digestion, where we're not digesting our food and we're just not being satisfied on a physical, biological, chemical level. That our food or our bodies are recognizing, hey, I just ate a salad and I'm satisfied. They're still searching.
Is fat a good preservative on my butt? I wish it worked out.
Warm.
Okay, I got a question for you. I have no clue, like, we have not discussed this before. And I was a good girl this morning. I'm usually pretty good for breakfast, but so this morning for breakfast, I have a Vitamix, and I made myself a drink. It is half a beet, a carrot, a full lemon, and a half green apple, and a little bit of apple juice. That was my breakfast. What do you say about that?
That is an awesome breakfast. I would make a tiny little tweak to it, and that's by removing the apple juice. You've already got your apple with all the fiber in it. Why are you adding all the sugar? If you wanted to add a little bit of sweetness to it and you wanted to get more bang for your buck, I would remove the apple juice, add something like a pineapple, half a cup of pineapple in, or a quarter cup of pineapple, and then just water. You're going to get the sweetness that the apple juice is going to give you, plus you're getting one of the most healthiest foods in the world, which is pineapple.
No way. That's like one of my favorite foods in the world.
Absolutely, yes.
Pineapple. When I go on holidays in the Caribbean, I make myself sick. I eat so much of it. And I'm not even kidding. It's insane.
That's awesome.
Okay. What do you have, let's say, if you had to pick one thing to tell me, do not eat this no matter what. Take that out of your diet completely. Don't touch it. Don't go near it. What would it be?
Breakfast cereals.
Oh, damn it. And you know, I have 2 young kids, and it is a nightmare to try to get them off the cereal. And they get addicted to it, and they see it in the grocery store, and it's just, and let's face it, as a parent, it's such an easy breakfast.
You're absolutely right. But you know what's easier than cereal? Last night's leftovers.
Yeah, well, you don't know my son now, do you?
Very true. But the point that I try to make with that is the idea, the Western world is the only place in the world that has specific breakfast foods. Everywhere else in the world, they have food for breakfast. And by eating something that is not a traditional breakfast, having so many people find it such a foreign concept to have salad for breakfast, which I know people want more substance than a salad for breakfast. But what is wrong with having a bowl of soup for breakfast? You want that warm thing, especially with winter coming up.
You're stressing me out right now. Like the thought of eating soup for breakfast is my brain is going, no way, I'm not eating soup for breakfast.
And it is. That's exactly it. It is a mindset because it's the
Totally.
way we've been raised. And I grew up on cereal as well. It was like a bowl of cornflakes or a bowl of Rice Krispies. And I understand the ease of it. But when you look at it from a term of this is my health, and I'm going to put a little bit of energy into taking care of my health, or doctors are going to be doing it for me. And if you want to be empowered and you want to be the driver of your health and the rest of your long life that is disease-free, you must change your mindset. Little bits. You don't have to make drastic life-altering decisions if you're not fighting a life-altering condition. If you just want to be healthier and avoid disease, start making these little changes in your life. Start looking at your food in a different way, that you're not seeing food as breakfast food. You're seeing it as I'm eating something because I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And take the labels off it.
And that takes a while. Like, so my thing, I'm not a big sweet person. I can take or leave chocolate, does not bother me. But I do like salty food, like chips. And so how bad are chips for me?
Depending on the kinds. If you look at the grand scheme of all the snack foods out there, if you're eating like just a regular flavored potato chip, put the fat aside on the impact that it has on the cardiovascular system, but from a lack of additive, if you will, and the impact on your health, it's one of the better options to have.
Oh my God, I just love you so much. I love you so much right now. Woohoo! Okay, so tell me, so we've talked about if you take one thing out of your diet, it should be cereal, a breakfast cereal. If you add one thing to your diet, like as a first step, that crucial thing that will help my health tremendously, what would it be?
Add more vegetables into your diet, green vegetables specifically. There's hundreds of green vegetables out there. If you don't like broccoli, for God's sakes, don't eat broccoli. Eat some bok choy if that's what you like. But if you can get more green vegetables into your daily consumption, you will increase your health immensely.
And why green and not orange or red?
Green.
What's with the green?
It's a little bit more nutrient dense in the fact that it's easier on your body to absorb some of the greens, as well as they're so dense in nutrients that in comparison to like an orange vegetable, there's just a little bit more benefit from the fiber, from a lot of the trace minerals in it, as well as the vitamins. The spectrum is a little bit bigger. And then fiber is massive. There's so much more fiber in our green vegetables than there is in orange vegetables.
So I know people come to you when they're sick and they need help with their health. Do you have a story about that?
God, yes. I have many stories actually, but the one that stands out in my mind is quite recent. And he's been a farmer his whole life. He is 68 years old. He's had Crohn's disease for better part of 30 years. And his dietitian had him on a very meat-heavy diet. And because of his diet that his Alberta dietitian gave him, his kidneys were shutting down. He couldn't process all the meat that he was consuming. And he was going to be put onto the kidney transplant list, dialysis and they were anticipating him to need a kidney transplant within the next year, where it would progress to the point where he would be on the list for a transplant. And so they reached out to me via their naturopath and decided to start working with me. And I had told him within 3 months, these creatine levels in your kidneys are going to drop and your energy will come back, and a lot of other things that he had going on was going to change. And he agreed to work with me. And in the back of his mind, he told me later that he did not believe a word I said, but he was desperate because he was worried. And so he decided to work with me. And at 10 weeks, he had another blood test, and his creatine levels had dropped to just out of the normal range, from a point where they were really concerned about dialysis. And after
What's creatine?
It's a byproduct, if you will, from digesting animal products that your body naturally creates.
And what does it do?
Animal products you eat, the higher your creatine levels are.
And so then where did he end up?
He sent me his latest blood results about a month ago, and his creatine levels are absolutely normal. He is no longer a concern for dialysis. Kidney transplant isn't even in his realm of thinking, and he's back to working his farm again.
Wow. So why do you think our doctors don't know this stuff? Because why isn't that a prescription?
It's because they're not taught. It's the way the system is set up, that nutrition, and many people have said to me, I've asked my doctor, should I change my diet when they get a diagnosis? Oh, no, food doesn't have anything to do with it. And from the way I see it, it appears that they're in such a bubble of they're so reliant on medication as a general rule, that's all they see. They see here's a symptom, here's how we fix it. But if you speak to a holistic doctor, they have a completely different approach, and they do believe that nutrition is one of the biggest factors in your health.
That's just craziness. Like, it's mind-blowing. The whole food thing is mind-blowing for North American. Like, it's so hard to, especially when you're not trained, you're not a chef, you have no education, and you watch documentaries, and like, there's so much. It's just so complicated. And then you watch people like in France who seem to eat like these crazy sauces full of stuff, and they're so healthy. Like, what the hell?
And that alone, that observation speaks to the level of government impact, because the way that the legislation works in the European Union is hugely different, and France specifically, hugely different to what we allow in our foods in North America. The difference in the system, and Switzerland is quite similar, where they have strict guidelines, they have limitations, and they have a different view on food that we have here in North America, and that is the difference.
Yeah, and I mean, they treat food very differently. So I'm French Canadian, so I have a little bit of the European heritage to it a bit, and food is very sacred, really. When
It is.
you don't take food to go when you're in Paris. You don't even stop for like just a quick coffee. It's like, I don't think so. You're going to sit down, you're going to visit, and you're going to sip your coffee, your latte or whatever. Like,
Yeah, you're not spilling it in your lap as you're driving down the freeway.
yeah, like they really enjoy what they cook.
It is. It's part of their life. Whereas here in North America, we have removed it from our life. We don't have time to cook. We don't have time for food. And until there's a mass shift in our thinking, we're going to continue to have health issues. When you take the time to cook for your family, you'll find that other things start to shift in your life. And it doesn't have to be anything grand. And you don't have to make take an hour and a half or 90 minutes or, to prepare a meal. It's just changing the mindset and putting that care into, I'm going to take care of myself or my family by taking 10 minutes to cook or to put together a good meal. And when you start making that shift of making your food a priority and your health a priority, other things start shifting in your life as well, where that busyness starts to dissipate a little bit because you are taking the time to create something to eat. A lot of the busyness in your life will disappear because you're getting more priorities on what is really important to you. And that comes from as simple as taking 10 minutes in the morning to create something for breakfast.
I like that. What's your favorite food to eat?
Oh my God, hands down, it's tacos.
And what do you put in your taco? Because your taco might be very different than my taco.
It might very well be. I'm sure it is. I absolutely love authentic tacos, but I make my tacos with lentils. And once brown lentils are cooked and seasoned up, visually they look like regular ground meat, which is typically what most people put in their tacos here in Canada anyways. But it's the toppings, the authentic toppings that I love to get into. I love putting jicama in it, so it's got some crunch, or I'll put a little bit of green cabbage in it instead of lettuce to give it that extra crunch. And I want some heat, so I'll take the time to make a beautiful salsa to put on it with a bit of a kick, or I'll make up an adobo sauce to pour over my lentils. And I never put any dairy in them. I pile it up with avocado and I give it a fresh squeeze of lime so it's really vibrant and alive. And it's so full of flavor that it's like a party in my mouth every bite.
You're making me hungry. I'm going to have to go and cook now. And what's your favorite food to cook?
I would have to say soups. I am a huge soup pusher. There's so much nutrition in it, but the process of having all these ingredients come together and meld into a beautiful flavor that is so nourishing, both emotionally and physically, it is by far my favorite thing to make. And I've always got one going on. Every week I make a soup.
Wow. I love soup as well. It's very rewarding. I think it's the first thing I've ever cooked in home at school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember, doing the onion and the celery for your base when you first start. And that had a big impact on me for some reason.
Yes.
Okay, so if people want more information about what you do, what you offer, where can they find you?
It would be best to find me either on my website, which is culinarysskillsandnutrition.ca, or I hang out on social media quite a bit with lots of tidbits and information and resources. Most of that you can find on Facebook, but I also have a different following on Instagram where it's just about the food that I'm putting out there. And
so where do they find you on Facebook?
On Facebook and on Instagram, they're both under Culinary Skills and Nutrition.
Very cool. Well, thank you. That was a fabulous conversation. I love food. I love cooking. And I love your beautiful, powerful, full of knowledge brain.
Thank you very much, Bridget. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
If you have a burning desire to share your story with our audience, apply to be on our podcast. To apply and find a full list of our podcasts, go to www.womentalk.ca.
But when you step back and make food a priority in your life, and you take that 10 minutes to prepare yourself something that is made from whole foods, then the self-care that comes from that process of being able to take care of your own body, to take care of your family, and put some thought and energy into that, so many other things start to shift in your life. It no longer becomes just about taking an extra 10 minutes to prepare something to eat, whether it's for breakfast or dinner. It carries over in other areas of your life. And I know that everyone is so rushed for time, and I got to get there and got to get here. But when we start taking those 10-minute spans and to take care of ourselves, all that other stuff and the busyness of our lives.
Oh, are you back? Are you back, Susan?
Are you there?
Oh, yeah, I think you're frozen still. I think all of a sudden we had a bad connection.
Yeah. I haven't got notification. I'm unstable.
Okay, I think we're good now. You're back.
Oh, okay.
Maybe let's take it back from when you take the time to cook for your family.
Oh, okay.
That's where you cut off, like,
Okay.
so you get a reward. Like, it's rewarding to cook for your family.